everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be about the new change at Louis Vuitton, which just took place a couple weeks ago, where they are no longer making bags with date codes and instead they have chip technology. There have been a lot of opinions floating out there about what that's going to do to the pre-loved market, and I thought it would be interesting to just kind of tell you my thoughts, and I would love to have a conversation with you in the comments about it. Do you love it? Do you hate it? I want to know it all, so definitely leave me your thoughts down below. But here's what I think. Some people are going to be more weary of buying pre-loved. They're just going to be, without that date code, they're going to be nervous about authentication. I'm not one of those people. I'm not interested in anything new from Louis Vuitton right now anyway, but I just don't think that the date code is that big of a piece when it comes to authenticating an item from Louis Vuitton. It helps for sure, but almost every fake bag has date codes. So I don't think that the lack of having a date code or having one is going to make all that much of a difference. But I do understand why some people might be a little bit more weary about it without that. I believe that the next few months, when you go to buy a bag in the store, there will be a few left that will still have date codes and then a few that will not. And the ones that will not will be seen as more newer and pristine and cool. And people will gravitate towards that more than the ones with the date code. Though on the other side, I think there are going to be some people who will be nostalgic for the date code and will be asking for the older bags maybe in the back because they want the date code present. So I think people will be pretty opinionated on if they want a date code or not. However, when you're buying something online, you have no idea what that's going to be, and I know that's what a lot of people are doing right now, so it's going to be kind of a mixed bag, I think. Similarly, I think in a few years, people will search for bags pre-loved that have the date code or not. That's going to be a selling feature. Some people will want the ones that do not because it is the newer trendy item. It'll seem like it's, more pristine to them because it's newer, even though it's not necessarily, it's a few weeks newer in some cases. And then some people, for nostalgic reasons, are absolutely going to want the date code version. I also think if we fast forward 20 years from now, that is going to be the thing that determines if a bag is vintage or not vintage. Does it have a date code? Does it not? And it's going to be seen as like true vintage if it has a date code. I think chips are also going to become commonplace across luxury brands over the next few years. Louis Vuitton is getting in at the beginning of this, and I do believe they think that's going to give them an edge up, really pushing innovation forward. But I do think pretty much everyone is going to catch up to that pretty soon. I also think, with that being said, there are going to be brands that we wouldn't necessarily consider luxury who are going to deem themselves to be more luxurious because they have that chip technology, which has become pretty commonplace amongst luxury brands. I was convinced when I first heard about this that this was technology that was going to be not necessarily hacked, but like reverse engineered. People were going to figure it out, and then they were going to create their own things that could determine authenticity and determine what these chips say and all of that. Then I did a little bit more research on it and talked with my husband, who's in tech. This is his world. And he was like, oh, they used blockchain. That's very smart. He said it really is not going to be hacked or compromised in any way like that. It really cannot be. And from my very limited knowledge of blockchain and the conversations I've had with him, what I understand that to be is that there is, he calls it a ledger, but chain links is what makes sense to me, that show every sort of piece in history. So they have their own kind of numbers that have been there, but then every time somebody makes a new bag or authenticates a new bag or whatever, it's going to add to that chain instantaneously. So in a second, all over the world, there could be a whole bunch of new configurations, and that is constantly updating. So if somebody tried to reverse engineer it, they would be missing all of the new stuff since they started working on that. Even if they just like stole one of the scanners or something, it's not possible, I guess, to do that. What we need to know is that it actually is very secure and very smart way of doing this. So then another thing that comes up are third-party authenticators. Are they going to be seen as valuable anymore when they do not have this chip technology reader, right? They're not going to be able to know if something has a chip. Or I guess my husband said you could figure out if something has a chip, but you wouldn't be able to read it to make sure it's an authentic chip. So perhaps they'll get something where they'll be able to say, oh yes, this one doesn't have a date code, but it does have a chip. Is that going to determine if something is fake or not? Probably not. However, because a lot of people aren't going to be able to get their hands on this technology, and what the thought is right now is that the SAs are only going to be able to check something if it's a return. They probably will check something as it comes into stock too, right, in the store. But you're not going to be able to walk in and ask them to kind of check something for you. That's not a thing. This hasn't been said yet, I don't believe, but I would think that also if you get something repaired, it will be checked, because they like to authenticate something before they repair it. So my guess is that is one way. If you buy something pre-loved, Louis Vuitton is great with repairs. You walk in, you say, I'd like to get this repaired, and then it doesn't really matter if you bought it pre-loved. You don't have to have, unless you're trying to get it repaired for free, you don't have to have any kind of tag with you or something, or purchase history. They'll repair anything that is authentic. So my guess is they would have to use the technology for that. So that would be one way. If it's not in pristine condition and you want to get it repaired, you could probably authenticate it in the process. I still think third-party authenticators they're going to have to shift a little bit to talk about that. But I think that their expertise and skill is still going to be really valuable. They'll still be able to tell, with stitching and with just kind of a big knowledge of how these bags work. They're still going to be able to tell if something is authentic or not, despite it not having a date code and having a chip. I think that brands that already have an aspect of pre-loved on their own sites. So right now I'm thinking Mulberry. There are less luxury brands that have that, right, have their own pre-loved market. But Mulberry's pre-loved market, I think, would be considered to be better than buying it just from a regular pre-loved seller, because they would be able to check that technology in-house and really know that something is authentic and not like a super fake that's been returned back to them or something like that. They've recently started selling on Vestiaire themselves, so they're definitely a really good brand that is starting to do that. But I think in general, if brands are worried about the pre-loved market and want to do something about it, then they might figure out a way to do that in-house, to do something themselves that helps them still have control over that market. And then someone else said to me recently that they thought that this was an attempt for Louis Vuitton to go against the pre-loved market, to kind of try to take it down a peg. I don't think so. LVMH is doing a lot of really good stuff when it comes to sustainability, and I don't think Louis Vuitton is trying to combat the pre-loved market. I do think they're trying to combat the counterfeit market. So I think that that's their goal. I really don't see it as them attempting to really kind of mess with the pre-loved market, because as of right now, previous bags do all still have the date codes and don't have the chip technology. They're really in the pre-loved market. So I don't see that so much as being their goal, but I wouldn't be surprised if over the next few years we see them come up with their own way to incorporate the pre-loved market into their business model. Let me know your thoughts down below. I'm really curious to know what you all think. Would you want something with a chip, or would you prefer something to have a date code? I don't know that I care so much either way. Again, I'm not interested in anything new, so I don't have that want of something to not have a date code. But I don't think it would bother me too much if I did have something without a date code. Just, I don't want to deal with the crappy quality issues that are happening now. Please do share your thoughts with me down below. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you in a future video. Bye.